For 40 years, the official record said Canada won the 1985 World Curling Championship on pure skill, but the World Curling Federation made sure you'd never learn that the final was decided before the last stone ever touched the ice. That's the story they tell. It isn't what happened. Someone made sure you'd never hear this. Here's what the records were rewritten to hide. Curling looks quiet. Ice, stones, brooms, and silence. That's exactly why nobody ever suspected it. In 1985, the World Championship came down to a single house in Glasgow. Skip Daniel Reyes led the Canadian rink, 4 shots down with 2 ends left. Then he wasn't. He climbed back, stole 3 ends in a row, and won by 1 point on the final stone. The papers called it the greatest comeback curling had ever seen. Reyes became a national hero. Sponsors lined up. The federation put his face on the cover of the next year's rule book. Nobody asked how a team down 4 points on ice that heavy closed the gap that fast. For 40 years, nobody had to. Here's the first crack. In 2019, a retired ice technician named Walter Combs gave a deposition nobody was supposed to read. He'd worked the '85 championship. He said the ice conditions changed mid-match. Not from weather, not from wear, but because someone adjusted the building's humidity controls between ends. A shift that subtle would slow the opposing rink stones just enough to miss their lines, just enough that no broadcaster would notice, just enough that only a curler would feel it. Combs said he flagged it to an official that night. He was told to keep quiet and was reassigned the following week. That's not a coincidence. That's a cover-up with a paper trail. But the obvious explanation doesn't hold. You'd think one rogue technician couldn't rig a world final alone, and you'd be right. Humidity controls in a building that size required sign-off from event operations. Someone above Combs authorized the change. Someone approved reassigning him fast enough that he never spoke publicly for over 3 decades. A single tampering ice tech is a scandal. A tampering ice tech with institutional cover is something else entirely. That's the part they buried deepest, not the fix itself, but who protected it. And that's not even the part they buried. Here's what actually happened, and who let it happen. Federation financial records, unsealed through a 2021 records request, show the host broadcaster had signed a 5-year rights extension contingent on the tournament producing what the contract literally called a marketable underdog narrative. Canada, struggling in the standings all decade, was that narrative. The broadcast deal was worth an amount the Federation could not risk losing. Somewhere between the boardroom and the ice, that financial incentive became a green light. Not an explicit order to fix a match, nothing that direct ever gets written down. Just a quiet understanding passed through layers of officials that the story needed to end a certain way. Combs was the mechanism, the broadcast contract was the motive, and the Federation's own internal ethics review conducted in 1987 and never released concluded in language buried on page 41 that irregularities could not be conclusively ruled out and recommended no further action. They investigated themselves. They cleared themselves. They sealed the file. 40 years, that's how long that file stayed closed. That's how long Reyes kept a title built on ice that wasn't playing fair. That's how long Combs carried what he saw before anyone would listen. This changes what that championship actually means. Reyes never knew, by most accounts, he played the shots in front of him and made them. But the record books don't have room for that nuance. They just say he won. Meanwhile, the rink that lost, a Scottish team that had trained 4 years for that one match, went home believing they simply weren't good enough. 2 of those players quit competitive curling within a year. One of them, decades later, told a local paper he still couldn't watch that final without feeling sick, and he didn't even know why. Now you do. This is why you never heard it, because the people with the power to tell this story were the same people who needed it told the other way. A quiet sport, a quiet fix, a quiet 40 years. Walter Combs is in his 80s now. He says there's a second name in that sealed 1987 file, the official who approved the humidity change, and that he's never spoken it publicly because he doesn't know if that person is still alive, or if they still have the kind of power that reassigned him once already. He says the Federation still has that file. He says it's still sealed. So the question isn't just what happened on that ice in Glasgow. It's who's still protecting the answer.